So we leave Clifton and continue through Swinton. Things start to change a little. The further you travel towards Pendleton, the Height and the inner city district, the more you're heading into what many locals would describe as the real heart of Salford. Now, before people start arguing in the comments, every part of Salford is Salford. But if you grew up around these areas, you'll know exactly what I mean. Once you're coming past Hope Hospital, heading towards Pendleton, Langworthy and the old rugby ground areas, you're getting into what many old school Salford lads would simply call proper Salford. It's worth mentioning as well that the bottom half of Swinton stretches towards Monton, Worsley and eventually Eccles. Those areas have their own stories and identities, which we'll cover in future episodes. But for now, we're moving east, towards the centre of the city. One of the biggest landmarks around here is the hospital, known to most locals simply as Hope Hospital, although officially it's now known as the Hospital at Pendleton. For generations of Salford families, it has been one of the city's most important institutions. Whether you were born there, treated there, or visiting somebody there, almost everyone in Salford has some connection to the place. Not far away from there sits the Height and the Dutchy estate. Now we're talking. For anyone who remembers Salford in the 1980s, 1990s and early 2000s, the Dutchy had a serious reputation. It was one of those places that people across Greater Manchester had heard of, whether they'd ever actually been there or not. Like many estates, the reputation was often worse than the reality. There were plenty of decent families living there, hard-working people just trying to get on with life. But there is no denying that the area saw its fair share of crime, violence and larger-than-life characters over the years. Talking about characters actually reminds me of an old mate from back in the day. He was known as Clarky from Cheetham Hill. Honestly, he was one of the maddest blokes I've ever known. The definition of unpredictable. Looking back now, I think he was probably struggling with a lot more than people realised at the time. He had a good heart. He knew Tundy and that lot in the early days, but he was completely fearless, and sometimes that combination can get people into all sorts of situations. He knew plenty of people around Manchester and Salford. I actually think he was on the streets for a bit. One morning, when I was still living at my mom's on Jackson Street, I got woken up at something ridiculous, like 5 in the morning. My bedroom was at the back of the house. Next thing I know, I hear noise outside the window. I pull the curtain back, and there's Clarky, halfway up the drain pipe. The bloke had literally climbed up the side of the house. I eventually let him in, and he's carrying a massive bag. The bag is absolutely full of money, mostly pound coins. Now, where the money came from, I honestly couldn't tell you. I think he's just robbed a pub or something. Oh yeah, that's right, it was a fucking fruit machine in a pub. But Clarky being Clarky, he was in a great mood. Apparently we were going out. At the time, I had an old BMW I was trying to get rid of, and he'd been talking about buying it. Somehow, after very little discussion, and probably far too little thought, I ended up selling him the car for a ridiculously cheap price. The next thing, we're driving over towards Dutchy with my good friend Mike Higson, another brother from Little Holton. Clarky tells me we're visiting family. Whether they were actually family or not, I've never been completely sure. Eventually, we left him in the car there and carried on with the day. It sounds completely mad now, but at the time, it just felt like another normal day around Salford. If you've listened to Series 1, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. There's an episode where Clarky ends up getting hit with a pickaxe handle during an incident and lands in hospital. Thankfully, he was all right in the end, but it gives you some idea of the sort of life and situations that seem to follow him around. Back to the Height itself. The Height is actually one of the smaller districts in Salford, but it has always punched above its weight. The full historic name is Earlhams of the Height, and it has a long history stretching back centuries before modern Salford developed around it. The East Lancashire Road cuts directly through the area and acts as one of the main routes into Manchester city centre. Thousands of people pass through every day, without realising the history of the communities sitting either side of the road. The area has changed considerably over the years, but still retains that old school Salford feel. Long-time residents know each other. Families have lived there for generations, and there remains a strong sense of local identity. Near the East Lancs sits the community service officers, where offenders carry out community work projects around the city. Depending on the day, you'll often see teams out cleaning, painting, or carrying out maintenance work. There are still a few pubs around the Height as well, although nowhere near as many as there once were. Like much of Salford, many have disappeared over the years as drinking habits changed and redevelopment took hold. The area has seen its fair share of incidents too. Shootings, gang disputes, and crime stories have all passed through here at various points over the decades. But like everywhere else we've discussed, that's only one side of the story. The other side is the community. The families who have stayed through good times and bad. The neighbours who look after each other. The schools, churches, sports clubs and local businesses that keep communities together. From the Height, the road naturally leads you towards Pendleton Roundabout and then down Langworthy Road. And that's where many Salford people will tell you you're entering the very centre of old Salford itself. The terraces, the old estates, the stories, the characters, the history. This is the Salford many people think of when they hear the name. And that's exactly where we'll be heading next.